Hi, we're here today with Saman Farid with Formic. Thank you so much for joining us. Wanted to kind of talk about your business and renting automation equipment. Our readers, they automate manufacturing facilities. And I understand that the current tariff environment has kind of been good for renting automation equipment. Wanted to kind of get your experience. So why don't we start right from the beginning? Can you tell me a little bit about what Formic does?
Yeah, so we provide what we call full service automation. So it's not just rental, because what we found is that for a lot of small, medium-sized manufacturers in particular, renting equipment doesn't actually solve the biggest problem around deploying robots, which is I don't know what to buy, I don't know how to buy it, I don't know how to manage it, I don't know how to maintain it, and then there's a huge risk proposition, right? Like I spend a bunch of money on something that ends up not working, and then I'm in trouble. So we provide full service automation. What that means is, we take care of soup to nuts, everything from engineering to installation to deployment to maintenance, spare parts, programming and reprogramming. I'm sure you know, and many of your readers know, like the SKU mix in any factory changes on a regular basis. Oftentimes more than a few times a year. And so when that happens, often the robot needs to be reconfigured. All that reconfiguring is included in our model, and we just help them fill empty headcount so that they can increase production.
Absolutely. What sort of sectors do you mostly serve?
So our three biggest sectors, the biggest one in general today is consumer packaged goods.
Mhm.
So we make a lot of products or a lot of robots that serve CPG manufacturers that could be making everything from nachos to dog food to laundry detergent to windshield wiper fluid. So all of those consumer products have a set of end of line stuff. So particularly focused around packaging and prep. Then secondarily, we also have deployments in metal fabrication that's making parts for automotive and aerospace and applications like that, where the robots are doing things like machine tending for a lathe or a mill, or a press brake or something like that. And then in the third category, we do some plastic injection molding robotics. So our robots help in plastic injection molding facilities to automate the loading and unloading of injection molds, so that people can get much more throughput and quality consistency out of their production processes.
Right. Let's kind of go back to tariffs, and I understand that there has been sort of I guess a boost in things like machine as a service or for renting automation equipment. Can you kind of tell me a little bit, has your company seen sort of an increase in interest in just kind of temporary automation solutions in the current environment because companies don't really want to make that investment right now?
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty that manufacturers face. So I would say even before this last round of tariffs, kind of starting in December, January timeframe, we started to see with the kind of possible tariffs coming towards Canada and Mexico, a lot of manufacturers all of a sudden started saying, well, how do I secure kind of the uncertainties in my business, right? Like my raw material costs may fluctuate, my ability to source from overseas suppliers may fluctuate, my ability to get parts made across the border, may fluctuate. So what can I do to have more control over my own fate? While knowing that that environment is changing so much, it's also hard for me to put hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into machinery and equipment that I may not need 6 months from now or a year from now or 5 years from now. And so what we really focus a lot of our effort on is helping them fill that gap really quickly. So creating flexible solutions. Some of our customers choose to go as simple as a month kind of contract. Some of them have more predictability in their business, and they can sign up for a year, or 3 years, or 5 years, and depending on what makes sense for their business, either they're kind of optimizing for flexibility or they're optimizing for cost efficiency. But in either case, what we allow a lot of these factories to do is to suddenly scale up their throughput and the quality of their products without having to dig deep into their pockets to come up with lots of capex budget and put that all at risk.
Sure, absolutely. Can you kind of go over some specific equipment that you're really kind of seeing a lot of interest in? Is it things like palletizers? Is it things like conveyance? What sorts of equipment, are you really seeing an increase in?
Absolutely. Palletizers is a very common one. Case packing is another area where we're seeing a lot of robotic applications. Conveyor kind of always is needed to some degree. We also have autonomous mobile robots for different use cases, delivering product, moving product around the facility. We also have sanitation robots that are being used to help clean manufacturing facilities after the production is done. That's particularly necessary in food production processes where often, 6 to 8 hours of a day is dedicated to sanitation. And that's something that robots can actually help drastically improve and increase the speed of. And then in the metal fabrication world, machine tending is a very common one. So machine tending for lathes and mills and presses. As you may know, large CNC machines or mills or lathes are often, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and factories are often have them. And then what we see is actually the utilization of those machines is very low. Typically, the utilization is about 1,000 to 2,000 hours a year, which is about 1/8 to 1/4 of the available production hours in a year. You have about 8,600 possible production hours. And if you're using it for 1,000 or 2,000 hours, right, like you can imagine that asset is highly underutilized. So what happens is when they bring in some robots to tend that CNC mill or lathe or press, that machine can actually double or triple its usefulness. A person may still be there from time to time to kind of bring in a bin of new parts, but then that machine can run overnight. And we have a lot of our customers that do that. And so the team comes back in the morning and there's a whole batch of new completed parts. In those kinds of use cases, really factories can up their throughput, up their production, and as a result, they can actually go and win more business. So what we've seen today, because of the latest round of tariffs, is a lot of large manufacturers, let's say kind of automotive companies or large heavy equipment companies, used to buy their parts from overseas.
Mhm.
And now they're saying, well, how can I find a domestic producer to help me make XYZ component? And so they'll come to a lot of these small factories and say, could you bid this part? Here's the CAD drawing, can you make it? Unfortunately, the reality is a lot of these shops then have to respond and say, in theory, we can make it, but we're booked full.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a very common situation. It's really, really sad to see because it's business opportunity that they could have taken. It's the ability to reshore more manufacturing. It's the ability to speed up the cycle. But because these factories are not automated, they're not able to increase their overall throughput. So what we've seen is once they get a couple of robots, then they can start to say yes to some of those orders. And it helps them win more of that business.
Absolutely. What is one piece of advice that you would give to a company looking to automate quickly, so that they can take on those orders and that increased business?
Yeah, I think generally the first thing I would say is call Formic. We make it a lot easier. The second thing I would say is, I think robotics is one of those things that you can't kind of indiscriminately add. Like it's not like buying a forklift where you buy a forklift and a forklift is a forklift and you're kind of done. Robotics is one of those things that requires a lot of ongoing management and maintenance of that robot to keep it up and running. And so my recommendation would be either hire internally a strong engineering team and robot programming capabilities to do that. That's kind of option one. Option two is to find like a trusted source and be ready to have capital available. And what I would say is generally, if you're going to go with like a systems integrator, my expectation would be you should budget about 50% more than whatever they're quoting you. So if they say a project is $100,000, you should at least prepare $150,000 to $200,000 of capital available, because what's common in those situations is there's often what's called change orders in the process, right? You kind of try to deploy something and then you realize in the process there's things you didn't account for and you need to make modifications. And then over time, over the first year or two, there's actually a lot of costs you may need to incur to get that system up and running again. And then option three is really what I call kind of full service automation. And so there aren't a lot of other options on the market, so it does sound a little bit self-serving. But really, I think that the easiest way for people to get started with robotics is through full service automation.